There's no place like the Qube. Family, it's your favorite queer radio personality, Aina Deshawn, with our queer news for today. Now, I want to make you a promise. We will continue to bring you the latest in queer news, culture, and politics every Monday by 7 a.m. Chicago time. So, if you are digging our intersectional take on the weekly, consider joining the QCrew. The QCrew is our monthly membership program we started to help grow the podcast. You get weekly emails from me, exclusive interviews with LGBTQ influencers from across the country, and beginning this year, special behind-the-scenes footage too. With your support, we can bring you more stories celebrating our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and comrade communities. Click the link in the show notes to join the QCrew today. Don't have $5 to join the QCrew? It's okay. There's things you can do for free. You can rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend. Or two. Family. Black people in the South make up 38% of the population, but 52% of all new HIV infections. So why aren't we talking about it? I'm Aina Deshawn, your favorite queer radio personality. My co-host Dwayne Kramer and I will explore the shame, the stigma, and the solutions. This is Black HIV in the South. How did we get here? Tune in on the Qube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you lost in your podcast journey? If so, you found the right podcast. My name is DJ Tracy Treese, and I'm a podcast producer. In partnership with the Qube, I'm bringing you the Lost and Found for podcasters. I've worked behind the scenes on some of your favorite podcasts, and I'll be bringing you some great conversations with podcast industry experts to help you find your way through your podcast journey. There's so much information out there, and the industry is rapidly changing. No need to feel lost. You found the right podcast. Subscribe to the Lost and Found for podcasters now. Everywhere that you listen to podcasts, if you prefer your podcast in video, click the link in the description to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube.
You are now tuned in to higher frequencies. We do this frequently. Turn your radio station to E3 for that decency. Listen to great music and the latest movement. Safe listening for anyone that's tuned in. Who you waking up to? Aina Deshawn, QCrew and friends. It's that real talk. Online radio with the spins. You caught up in traffic, frustrated. Just check in with E3 to shift your vibrations and get elevated. That's queer radio done right. Choose to be yourself. That's the only way to live life, and that's how it's done here. Just know y'all tuned in to the greatest. Ain't no competition. We ain't worried about the other stations. Check.
Now for the news. It is Trans Week of Visibility, so let's just talk all things trans today, and only good news. Let's go. So Saturday kicked off Trans Week of Visibility. Trans Week of Visibility occurs annually, the week of March 31st, which is the International Transgender Day of Visibility. Now, this event was started in 2009 by a Michigan-based transgender activist, Rachel Crandall, and as a way to celebrate the trans community in all its diversity. It's also an opportunity to acknowledge the discrimination our trans fam has to face every day. Well, in an effort to amplify this week and to give some action behind it, in 2021, Chase Strangio and Raquel Willis launched Trans Week of Visibility and Action. The action takes place in the digital space, and this year, the focus is on mobilizing the masses against the legislative attacks on the trans community, specifically youth. This week aims to center direct action and political education and show how the community can show up for our trans siblings. We must understand this anti-trans political climate we are living in and figure out how in the world we fight back. I think that's really at the heart of it. Most of us want to do a good thing, but we don't know where to begin, where to start, and how we can actually be of service. So what they've done is they've actually organized this week of digital actions that started on Saturday and will culminate on Friday, which is Trans Day of Visibility. So let me tell you what they're doing and what they're focusing on every day this week. So it kicked off on Saturday, the 25th, and it was all about transness is power, breaking the bans. They talked about the 400 plus anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ bills introduced, y'all, in at least 34 states. 34. Now, Sunday, March 26th, was all about the drag bans happening across the country that make absolutely no sense. And y'all know we've talked about those a lot on the show. Now, today, March 27th, it's all about the healthcare bans, and specifically bans on gender-affirming care. Now, you've heard me report on this also time and time again. According to Trans Week, this year, at least 27 states have introduced almost 100 healthcare bans targeting trans people. States like Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, and Missouri have introduced multiple bills attempting to ban and restrict healthcare for trans people of all ages. Y'all don't even know. Florida, DeSantis, y'all. They've even gone so far as to introduce a bill that could remove children from their homes where cis parents are affirming their trans children. I heard Amara Jones speaking, and if you're not following her on Twitter, you should definitely go and do that. But she was talking about how we have refugees here in this country, right? We have cis parents, or maybe even trans parents, who have trans youth in their care, and they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe in places like Florida, right? We reported just last week about what's happening in Kentucky. There are families literally having to move from one state to another in order to remain safe. That is the literal definition of a refugee. Now, tomorrow, March 28th, it'll be all about censorship and forced outing as it pertains to curriculum bans, book bans, and legislation that is forcing people to come out. Now, on Wednesday, the 29th, it's all about the bathroom bills and how they are meant to restrict trans people's presence in public life and affect the ability of trans people to go to school, to work, hospitals, and other essential parts of daily living. And I think oftentimes people don't look at it this way. They think about their own experience and going to the bathroom and how they feel. But do you all understand that when we restrict people from using the bathroom, do you go outside if you can't pee? No, you don't. And for these Republicans that are introducing these bills, they don't want anything to do with trans life at all. And so restricting the bathroom is a wonderful way to ensure that trans folks don't come outside because they won't feel safe. Y'all, this stuff is real deep. So on Thursday, the 30th, it's all about the sports bans and how over the last 3 years, 18 states have banned trans girls and women from sports. Nothing about trans men. Nothing about trans boys in sports. Nope. So a girl transitioning into a boy, they could care less about that. Okay? Could care less. I don't even got the energy to go into the misogyny there, okay? Don't even got the energy. And now to close out the week, on Friday, March 31st, it is Trans Day of Visibility, and they're going to center trans joy and trans power. Owning that joy and power, they say, are the true antidote to anti-trans violence. Family, what I really love about this campaign is that after they provide the education stuff, right, they also give actionable steps we can take politically and socially to affect change. Then they provide ways we can financially support specific trans-led organizations. I love this because in a keynote I just gave last weekend, right, at Affinity, and I talked a little bit about that on the podcast, I challenged folks during my keynote to think about their time, talent, and treasure. Okay, I'm from the church, time, talent, and treasure. We at least have one of these things. We do, all of us. Maybe a little bit more of this than that, or a little bit more of that than this. But either way, we've got one of these 3 T's. And all of these organizations are always in need of one of the 3. And so I challenge you to think about how you can be of service and how you can give of your time, your talent, or your treasure to support these organizations that are literally fighting for our lives. Because if you do not see the connection in them trying to erase trans life, please believe queer life is next, and please believe Black and brown lives are under attack. Period. Now, I do want to drop a few good news stories about our trans fam too, because we deserve good news, okay? And so often the news is not good. But on this show, on this here podcast, I get to decide what news we cover. And today, what bleeds does not lead. You feel me? So let's start with South Carolina. A new billboard in South Carolina has popped up, and do y'all know what it says? It says, "Rejoice! God loves trans kids." Can y'all believe that? This billboard is so epic, and it's definitely causing quite the stir, okay? So who is behind it? It's an organization called the Alliance for Full Acceptance, and they've launched this billboard as part of their, quote, "God loves LGBTQ plus people" campaign. The whole goal is to combat the use of religion as a weapon against the LGBTQ plus community, and even more specifically, the trans community. The billboard is located along Interstate 385. So if you're in South Carolina and live near this interstate, you got to go see it. Tag me. Tell me you saw it. Twitter, Instagram. Yo, big ups to the Alliance for Full Acceptance. We need one of these billboards in Chicago, so y'all let me know, okay? Rejoice. They led with rejoice. Our second good news story about our trans fam is coming out of Maryland. On Saturday, the House passed the Trans Health Equity Act, which would expand Medicaid coverage to include gender-affirming procedures for trans, intersex, non-binary, and two-spirit individuals. How dope is this? So often the legislation is negative, right? We're going to talk about some good legislation today. Just like last week, right? We talked about Michigan. Come on, let's piece them all together. Because these are the places we need to go visit and spend our money. Okay, I digress. So the procedures that are going to be covered in this Trans Health Equity Act are procedures such as hormone therapy, puberty blockers, hair alterations, and several other gender-affirming procedures that are often covered by private insurance. Currently, the state's Medicaid program only covers some gender-affirming procedures, leaving low-income residents without access to necessary medical care. The legislation will now move to the Senate, right? And if passed, will then be sent to the governor's desk, Governor Wes Moore, who has already shown support for this bill. Come on, Maryland. Come on, Senate. Let's make it happen. Our third and final good news story about our trans fam is actually coming from the Queer Youth Assemble. And so this is so dope, and I love when we empower young people to do amazing things. On March 31st, which we've discussed, is Trans Day of Visibility. There's actually a coordinated effort of 30 plus marches happening across the country. It's called the March for Queer and Trans Youth Autonomy. So what the Queer Youth Assemble is saying is that it's time we create one of the largest queer and trans youth marches in history, uniting every queer and trans young person under the common goals of safety, autonomy, and joy. Family, I love everything about this. If you're in Chicago, the march is taking place at 5 p.m. at Grant Park. The details are in the show notes, and if you are in another state, I have that link too in the show notes. Go check out the march. Go support the young people. How dope is this? Let's go, Queer Youth Assemble. It's that time, family. It's that time to close out the podcast. And today I want to talk about fear a little bit. Now, I'm a fan of Les Brown and his motivational speeches, and he always drops some gems. And one of his quotes says, "Too many of us are not living our dreams because we are living in fear." And with everything going on right now against trans folks and against the LGBTQ plus community, we can really hold a lot of fear from doing what we're supposed to be doing what we're called to do here on this earth, right? Because we're afraid, and legitimately afraid. But I want us to really think about this quote, because we can't live our fears, right? If we live our fears, they really can cause us to have these negative thoughts, and those negative thoughts start percolating. And then before you know it, you actually begin to believe it. You start to believe the things that they're saying, and none of it is true. You really have to prepare your mind and release that fear and release that doubt, because you are enough. Whatever dreams you have, whatever greatness you want to obtain, it was given to you and only you and no one else. So I hope you tap into it. I hope you release all that fear because it's not serving you. And then you don't get to bless us with all your greatness. Okay? Until next week, family. Peace. If you enjoyed what you hear, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is a production of E3 Radio, your #1 queer radio station playing queer music and reporting on queer news in high rotation.